One of the things that has become, I guess, evident for me is people are always curious. I'm curious, and I'm sure you're curious too. But the things that they're curious about are, for me, what's really important. So it's identifying what is it that they really want to know and then sharing that knowledge. One of the things that I'm often asked, and it doesn't matter whether it's a stranger or whether it is somebody that has known me for a really long time, I'm often asked, how is it that you have that clarity about what it is that you want to do and who you choose to be with, whether you say yes, whether you say no? So I'm going to share this because I think it's so important. We continuously look outside for the answers, but the reality is that it's within each of us. It's definitely within you. So here's what happened for me and how I ended up being where I am today, because it's not that hard. Believe me, it really isn't hard, and I'm nobody special. So if I can do it, the reality is that you can too. For me, it was actually in a moment of crisis. I guess I tend to have the ability to really think deeply about things, particularly in challenging times. For me, in those moments, I really identify what is it that I actually want? What is it that I'm in pursuit of? What is it that I'm actually experiencing now? And so a lot of that thought process is internal. So for me in that moment, it was that point of crystallization in saying, what do you really want to do with your life, Kathy? What is it? And I remember doing the same thing, many years ago. I think it was about the year 2000 for my husband. He too was I guess, at a time of opportunity in saying, well, where do I want to be? His actual place of employment was shutting down. They were actually going to redevelop the site. The owners were actually doing something different. They had changed career paths. And so I said to him, what do you want to do? And I know that sounds strange, but by default, we naturally go back to what we have always done. And this is what happened for me in February 2020. As I sat next to my father, I began writing. More importantly, I think I realized that, life will never be the same. My father was actually critically ill. My mother was critically ill. And for me, it was, what do you honestly want to do, Kathy? And I can't tell you that it actually happened magically, but what did happen is that alignment in who I was choosing to become started to unravel. It started to unfold. And guess what? I started to unlearn what I thought needed to happen, who I thought I needed to be, so that I can choose who I wanted to become. That is a really important point. Understanding who you want to become is the key, and not holding on to what was, because by holding on to what was, it then actually entraps you or keeps you stuck. And so many people feel stuck these days. So the same thing happened. I go back to my husband. The same thing happened with my husband. He said he'd been a mechanic all of his life. And he said, you know what? I actually really enjoy being outdoors. I enjoy doing different things. I'm really good with my hands. So it became a roadmap of taking the things that are really, really easy for you, which means that, guess what? You love doing what you're doing, and then finding out how you can then apply that into who you want to be, who you choose to become. So for me, it was no different. And this is something that I actually do with all of my clients, and it doesn't matter who they are. High profile clients, C-suite, people who are actually at I guess, crossroads, people who have just been retrenched, women who are actually coming back into the workforce, women who have never worked before because they've taken care of children, family members, elderly parents. It is the same process. Now, the one thing that I will say to you is that I often talk about the art of listening to what's not said. And that is something that I'm incredibly conscious of. To hear what people don't tell you, because it's in that where the real magic lies. Understanding what they're telling you, because that's outward facing. And a lot of the time, subconsciously, they don't know what they're sharing, but they tend to actually share what they think you want to hear. So hone in on yourself, in what you are actually thinking, what you're saying, and then perhaps what you're holding back. So for me, that point of crystallization comes back to, gosh, I know that I've been privileged and that I've been gifted with a whole array of things, but how can I actually intertwine all of that to make the greatest impact? So it's been a journey, because it has become more of a finite thing over the years. Hey, I've been doing this for 3 years with this sort of clarity. I call it the moment of awakening. And some of you might actually be experiencing it right now. And so if it is, take the opportunity to pause. That pausing actually prevents you from chasing, which is what really we've been trained to do. So look inward and actually identify what are the things that you really enjoy doing. And how can you actually translate that to make it something that you can do as a career, as a vocation, whatever it is. So for me, I know that I genuinely want to reshape the minds of our future generation and equip them whilst they actually maintain and uphold their own cultures, but equip them to actually have a different vision, to think limitlessly, to actually go against what was, so go against the grain, and then to collaborate for global impact. It is far bigger than me. I know that, but none of that actually frightens me. And that's the other thing that tends to hold people back. It's the fear of the unknown. Once you let go, you actually begin to live life in flow. You live life with joy. And more importantly, the universe somehow brings people together from across the globe. So I can tell you that, I guess, by being so clear about what it is that I actually want, I have been incredibly fortunate to meet the most amazing people across the world. And you know what? Most of them aren't on social media. So that's actually saying a lot to me. You see, social media is really actually consumed predominantly, let's face it, by marketers or somebody who's trying to sell you something. So be mindful. What is it that you're actually absorbing? Because what you absorb, you then actually become, which is why I'm going to suggest to you is that you alone actually have the answers. You don't have to be me. You don't have to be anybody else. Just choose to be you and choose to know what it is that you ultimately want to do. And don't worry if you don't know that finite point. You will get there. But most importantly, it is to have confidence and know that just like me, you can actually land exactly where you want to be. For me, I am in constant pursuit of actually finding people who are aligned from a values perspective, integrity, ethics. They are actually key values of mine. And so if that's where you sit, then I'm sure that our paths will actually cross. Impacting our future generation, impacting those in impoverished nations who have perhaps not been as privileged as me, That's who I actually want to be the voice for. I know that I can actually help, support, show, elevate, and then watch them rise. So I hope that that has given you a little bit of insight as to how you alone actually do have all the answers. Just choose who you want to be, but more importantly, choose who you don't want to be. The art of saying no is actually incredibly powerful. You're actually saying yes to you most of the time when you say no.